Welcome. It is finally the week of the game returning. Oh, it's an Overreaction Monday show here on Orange Bloods Live. It's our first show kicking off Texas A&M game week. It's finally here. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. This show brought to you by the amazing people at Rogue Shop. In fact, right now, go over. Here's the thing. Let me pull this thing up. What happened? It just what's going on? Sorry, I'm having
your internet's a little shaky right now.
Well, this is what happens when we have so many pictures in the folder that I try to pull one up. And I tell you what, I'll post it later. Rogue, there it is. It just popped up on its own. I don't know what happened. Vote for Rogue Shop today. Scan that QR code, all right? Vote for Rogue Shop in this Chippewa Valley contest. Let's make them number one. It's critically important to their business. And they're going to give you a 30% off discount. All you've got to do is reach out to Richard at Rogue, let them know that you voted, and they're going to give you a 30% off discount at Rogue Shop. That's the deal that keeps on giving. I'm absolutely going to take advantage of that this week. Onward, we're here. The A&M game has arrived, and of course,
can I say something real quick about Rogue Shop? I apologize. It took me too long. Can I say so? Last week I missed a show because I've been dealing with this pinky toe that I broke about a year ago, right? And so they asked me when I got there, okay, I had to do a follow-up. I had to do a follow-up to it. Been having problems for about a year. And so they asked me, hey, well, what do you use to manage the pain? And I said, well, I've used a salve from Rogue Shop. And that's what I use on it. And the guy goes, oh, yeah, CBD salves are great for pain. So a medical professional was like, good job. And he told me about all the byproducts of that. So if you got some aches and pains, something like Rogue Shop will help you out. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Catch. I know you started, but
no, you're good. Look, hey, we're just getting started. Look, we've got Steve Sarkisian a little earlier today than normal. His weekly press conference is at 11 instead of 11:30. So if you're wondering, Catch, Anwar, why are you guys starting 15 minutes earlier than normal? Because we got to get the jump on what's going to be a busy week. It may be Thanksgiving. It may be the holidays. The kids may be out of school. Your kids out for the entire week?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Done.
Kids need to be in school till Wednesday.
There's no more of that, hey, until Wednesday, they're done. But here's what makes no sense, Catch. They have off, right? But then they have these – but they had to go to school on Friday, which made no sense at all. But then – they have random Mondays off, one Monday a month for, the entire school year. So I don't know what the hell we're doing nowadays.
This public babysitting and kid watching needs to pick up the pace a little bit. Look, it is A&M week. It's incredibly exciting. I suppose in retrospect, it feels like it would have been impossible to do this week without some sort of Quinn Ewers availability issue. It feels like we've gone a few weeks where we haven't talked about whether or not he's healthy or right, and ankle injury pops up on Saturday against Kentucky. You reported yesterday that early signs are Texas will have its quarterback on Saturday.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it sustains an injury on Saturday. We could all notice and see that he clearly wasn't at 100% because Quinn was kind of cooking before the injury. And then the injury occurred.
Well, for sure.
Yeah. And then the injury occurs. And then it's just like, oh, snap, here we go. And then, really to the point where Sark just, kind of abandons the pass and just says, well, we're going to run the ball. They're able to run it effectively. So, on Sunday, he goes out and gets an MRI on the ankle to test it out. And, the good news, for Texas is that it only ended up being a mild sprain. So that ends up being something, Catch, that you get to take care of with treatment all week long. It's a Saturday game. It's a Saturday night game as well. So when you just start talking about stretching that as much, and there's probably, from a Quinn perspective, probably not a thing where you got to say to yourself, man, he needs a ton of practice reps this week. he's at a point in his career, Catch, where you probably just need to make sure he's good to go for a couple of days. Now, look, if you start, you want to make sure your backup's ready. I mean, you want to keep that in the back of your mind, which I'm sure he always does. But the good news for Texas is that going into house divided, going into the biggest game of the year, and one of the biggest regular season games that Texas has had that I can think of, you at least your starting quarterback is just because of the stakes. I know the stakes weren't high versus Alabama. You lose that game, you still have an opportunity. The stakes weren't high versus LSU. The stakes that are high there, and so you have your starting quarterback going into that game.
Yeah, on some levels, this is really obvious. If Quinn Ewers even feels like he's at 75, 80%, it's the last regular season game of your senior year, or your junior year, but you're treating it ultimately like your senior year, walking out on senior day. I mean, this is what he's played for. This is, if you were going to have a veteran quarterback, and the value of a veteran quarterback, a guy that's made 3 seasons worth of starts so that he can go on a road, a place where he's had success. This is it. This is the Quinn Ewers moment that he's waited his entire life for.
Yeah.
And a guy falls on his ankle on Saturday, and he's not going to be at 100%. And it's not an issue of whether he'll play. I mean, if there was any real concerns about that, they certainly would have taken him out on Saturday because he had an ankle injury, and you could see that it was bothering him. There's so many conversations to have about this, Anwar, because the Sark component of this and Arch, it's an impossible one to get away from. But for me, all that matters is that there's a game on Saturday that Texas has to win. This isn't about who should be the starter. That is over. The starting quarterback discussion is over. It's week 12. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what Anwar thinks. The reality is that Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback, and this is his game. How well will he play? What will it look anything like Saturday? My guess is that he comes out and he looks good early, but what happens if that ankle gets aggravated? These are the questions that I have running through my head. Whether or not he plays or starts, that's just no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. Now, of course, we know on in a few hours, Sark will try to put some doubt in everybody's mind, right? That we know Sark is going to come out in a couple of hours and act like, hey, man, I don't know, man. Like anything could happen between now and then, right? And
if he really wanted to sell this, he should have replaced Quinn on Saturday. That would make people really wonder. Yeah. Everybody's like, no, man, you played that dude 4 quarters. He's playing.
So, but we know today he's going to act like, man, I don't know. He may need to have that ankle decapitated. I don't even know. They may need to cut it off. Looks like he'll be questionable. He'll be a game time decision, right? I'm sure we'll hear all of that, right? And you'll be smart enough to know when it comes to injuries that Sark's going to say what Sark's going to say. That's why, Catcher, I got frustrated in our post game show. I forget who it was when they asked about the Arch question. We had a conversation and it followed up with an Arch question. It's like, dude, that thing has left the barn like a long time ago. That is not happening. Like Sark in week 12 is not going to say to himself, nah, man, I'm going to go with somebody else. Not for somebody that Sark as a quarterback coach doesn't like to replace guys, and he wants to make sure that they're his guy, especially with Quinn, who is his guy. Arch is his guy. It's all part of play. I think it's part of getting him to the finish line, getting him to the league. Arch takes over when they start winning conditioning in January. Like, that's what becomes a part of the plan. It's all about Saturday and what version of Quinn that you see. You got to hope that since it's just a mild sprain, the guy plays injured. I mean, I'll give him credit. He does play injured. Now, he's had probably way too many injuries that you would want, but he does play injured, and none of these injuries are by his design. But we know that Texas A&M likes to pressure the quarterback catch. We know they like to get after it, and then we know that they're going to bring the heat when it comes to Quinn. Like, is there any doubt in your mind that Elko is going to say we're bringing the house and we're going to go ahead and see if they can handle this pressure?
Well, if I'm watching the film on Saturday, I'm thinking to myself, that guy can't move. And the moment, and I'm not talking about scrambling on 3rd and 6 to pick up 8 to move the chains. I'm talking about he had a hard time just dropping back inside the pocket. His mobility was minimal. And I think it kind of freaked Quinn out. He starts dropping snaps. He's fumbling balls. He's throwing balls backwards. I've got some nitpicks on Quinn Ewers as a player, but his ability to be calm under duress and generally safe. The ball's usually in safe hands when it's in. Quinn felt unsafe on Saturday. And I think I have a little bit of a credibility problem in this discussion.
Okay.
In that everybody knows that I think Arch Manning's going to be better than Quinn Ewers. And I don't know that the 2024 version of Quinn Ewers, who has been pretty good, but not better than that. I think Arch probably could have been pretty good this year at worst. But Saturday wasn't about that. Saturday, and this is the only time this season I've really thought this on, War. Okay. Quinn's got to play against A&M. He has to. That is not the game that you would want Arch Manning to start. Period. The last time a quarterback at Texas was forced to go into it, Texas did this with Chris Sims in 1999 on War. It was the Bonfire Tragedy game. Mm-hmm. And Major can't play. And Chris gets the start as a true freshman. And the moment was too big. Mm-hmm. And A&M wins that game. And so this isn't it. So I'm looking at Saturday and I'm thinking to myself, they need to protect Quinn for next week. And we were having this conversation at halftime before things, you're up 24-7. The game's good. This is why you have a talented backup. Don't take any risks. It felt like Saturday they were taking some risks. I don't know that they paid off. And now I have some doubt. The only doubt, if Quinn is good, Texas is going to beat Texas A&M. If Quinn's not good, well, all bets are off, and it's a game on Saturday. I think it's kind of as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we all acknowledge Arch and how good he will potentially be in the future, right? But what he can't have, it's selective too, because if you just take the word Manning off the back of his jersey and just say second-year player, you would tell yourself, okay, probably gonna have some bumps and bruises along the road, right? It just is what it is. And so just take Manning off, because I think people think Manning's godlike. People remember catch UTSA, right? They remember maybe a little bit of Mississippi State. They kind of forget La Monroe, where he looked like a second-year player. And that's okay. That's totally okay. That's not a knock on him, but he did have 2 interceptions. His quarterback rating was $135, right? So this is one of those games where you've got to have the guy who's going on the road at Alabama, who's going on the road to Michigan, right? Who's going on to a certain degree Arkansas and had to deal with that, who's won you a Big 12 championship game. And when you're talking about A&M, the thing that we've been talking about for years, I went back and I almost put in my column on Sunday, but I just wasn't quite sure how well it would be received. I wrote a column in 2019.
When in doubt, never push the button.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a golden rule or about Twitter or X or whatever social media. If you think it's funny or clever, hit the delete button. If you
did that this morning, Anwar.
Did you?
Danny Stutzman had his jersey stolen after the game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So he posts on Twitter, yo, somebody stole my jersey. Can I get it back? And I teed up a land thieves are now jersey thieves kind of thing. You know what? It's Monday of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I don't need to rile up the Sooners today. So I didn't. It was typed out on more. I was like, this is funny. And then I went, it's funny, but it's funny to me. And I can just keep it to myself. And the comment section of Twitter stays peaceful.
That's my golden rule. And it's good. It's better that way. You don't open yourself up. Got people on social media. If you think to yourself, you got to have that moment I catch it. You're like, man, this is funny. Nah, I probably should delete that. This is my goal.
You know what? Because nobody's mad at my Twitter feed right now. Nobody's mad at me.
No, and you're going to have a peaceful day. And everyone's going to talk about A&M. So I think it's just a matter of what version of – I forgot where I was. I went into like four different paragraphs.
You were just talking about – this is why you have Quinn to win to be in this moment.
Yeah, and been in all these games, for you. And Arch will have his moments, but this is what he's there for. This is where Sark looked at when he got here and was like, "Man, I can't win with these two guys at quarterback. Like they both can kick rocks." And he brought in this guy as Quinn. That there was a reason why. Oh, this is what it was, Catch. Because we're talking about A&M. Now I remember. I wrote a column back in 2019, and I basically just defiantly said Texas needs to play Texas A&M and this rivalry needs. And I went back and looked at the comments. It was like 14 pages of people calling me everything. People calling me everything but a child of God and telling me how we should never play this game again. You have no clue what you're talking about. You don't want to be around these people, blah, blah, blah. And now, Catch, a few years later, everybody's excited about this.
You need to bump that thread.
You think, should I?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely bumpable. I think you can bump it. You can't write about it. They're weirdly two different things. I think everybody appreciates a good I told you so with a bump. I think writing about it makes you seem like a dick. At least that's what people tell me.
So if I just bump and just go bump.
Just bump. Just bump.
I'm gonna see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through that entire thread when this show is over.
Killed.
Just to walk down memory lane. Hey, so
right now, how you talking?
Your vibe on Saturday is what today?
I'm just 14 pages, Catch. It was 14 pages. You know how hard it is to do a column of 14 pages on a Sunday morning? And by the way, that column was written on June 23rd. You know how hard it is to get 14 pages in June?
I mean, I do, yes. I do. Okay. I've written a June column and been like, what the hell am I writing about today? And then you're like, oh, you know what? What if I write about the Aggies today? That might be a nice little change of pace. And then it explodes on you and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Did I do the right thing? I think so. But boy, maybe not.
So when you ask me about what I'm thinking, I think about the stakes of this game. Because Catch, there's two things, right? There's advancing to the SEC championship game, and then there's the playoff, right? Which is the ultimate goal to get there, right? But, starting with the SEC, yeah, I don't trust the playoff committee, Catch. I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do on Tuesday with like an Indiana and what they do with that team. And then when you finally hit a point where they're saying, okay, Indiana finally played a good team and they lost, what's the committee going to say? The knock has been against Texas haven't really beat anybody. And so this is, for me, if you beat this team, you eliminate that from the committee. I think it makes the SEC championship game a little bit more breathable as far as the results are concerned.
Because it hosts. At worst,
Yes.
You're hosting a playoff game.
At worst. So you're there. The concern is, for me, missing the game, losing the game, missing the SEC championship game, right? Because now you got A&M in there. So now you're not. Now you got Georgia and Texas A&M that probably make the playoffs, or have a really good chance of making the playoffs. You got a Tennessee that probably needs to get in there. And I don't know what the committee does with Texas, when at the end of the day, you're going to start looking at 2-loss teams that have wins against ranked opponents, and Texas won't be one of those teams. And so, and again, you saw what happened with Georgia early in the year, 1 loss, and then they were just outside of the top 12 after that. So I think, for me, when you ask me where my head's at, I feel like the stakes are so high for Texas, because I feel like it's must win is a cliche, right? I know we always say that, but I feel like, as relates to everything, if you get to the right here, I don't know if you would call it the finish line, but it's one of the, your third of 4 laps. If you stub your toe here and you can't complete the whole 1 mile, I think it just becomes a huge disappointment.
I kind of agree and kind of disagree.
Okay.
I agree with the last point. It's a massive disappointment. But I think one of the things this weekend did is, now Sark won't treat it like this. I don't know that the players will think about it like this. But you know what? You and I, we're not the players or the coach. We can talk about whatever we want to. And it's funny, I've read a few columns. I read Pat Forty did a deal on SI, kind of said the same thing. Mm-hmm. The events of this weekend, specifically Ole Miss and Alabama losing and picking up their 3rd losses of the season. Texas has a safety net now. They're in the playoffs, barring, I think, getting ragdolled by A&M. Right? It's a competitive game. They lose. They're in. Now, it doesn't change what you said at the end, which is, you get to this point in the season, it's the home stretch, you're coming around the final curve, you've got the lead, you fall down. I mean, then people will they'll talk about falling down more than they'll talk about anything else from this season if you fall now. But I do think Texas would be in. Now, the problem is they would be going on the road in the first round. They're probably the 11 or 12 seed, maybe the 12 seed. I think they're in, but I think they're in at the very end. It's like, well, will the committee rank them ahead of Indiana or not? That would really, I think, be the conversation with both teams being in. It's a tough challenge at that point. You're going on the road in week 1 to the 5 seed if you lose this game, and then you'd be playing the 1 seed in the next round, and then maybe the 2, it's a treacherous path, I think, to be 12 or 11, because you're probably playing either Oregon or Ohio State, or I guess then it's like maybe you'd be on the road at Penn State in a bad weather game. Like, it's just all things being equal. It's not the route you'd want to choose, and it becomes very hard, I think, to have success in the playoffs, which is what this whole thing's about. It's prepare yourself, because we're going to get to the playoffs. And I think this is the thing on where I don't think most college football fans get this yet, but they will soon. You'll get to the playoffs and it'll be the only thing that matters. Yes. And if you go 12-0 or 13-0 and you win the Big Ten, but you lose your first playoff game, oh, that's a stink sandwich in your mouth for all of time. So on some levels, this week is everything, but it's everything because the whole point of all of this is to put yourself in the best position possible to win a national championship. And losing against A&M, I think, probably creates a pathway that would be too difficult for this team to overcome, which would make this season a bit of a disappointment.
If they win, they're in. Okay.
If they win, they're the 6th seed at worst.
Yes. Okay. If they lose, could the committee have allowed Texas to be ranked this high all year long, only to drop the bottom out?
It won't
at
happen.
the end of the day, right?
It won't happen. They'll because a week ago they were in a position where Alabama in the SEC pecking order beyond Texas, it was in order Alabama and Ole Miss in front of Georgia because those two teams had beaten Georgia. So it felt like no matter what happened, Georgia's got to be behind those two. Well, the problem is Texas lost to Georgia and they didn't play the other two schools. So it feels like, well, no matter what you do with Texas, you can't put them in front of Georgia. And then, so that makes Texas 4. If you lose to A&M, now you're 5th in the SEC pecking order if the Aggies are suddenly in. The problem that the SEC has right now is that they got 3 teams that are probably going to make it. And these 3 lost teams, they're not getting in ahead of Texas. So the SEC is getting 3 teams in. And Texas will be one of those 3. Georgia, Tennessee, Texas. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else is going to be in. I don't think enough teams are going to lose where there can be a South Carolina or Alabama argument.
No.
I think
had 3 losses.
No. And so I think Texas is in. I think a week ago they didn't have a safety net, and now they do. No matter what, if they lose this weekend, they'll still be one of only 3 SEC teams with two losses or less that will get them in. Because there's the committee ain't putting in 2 SEC teams, okay?
No.
There's going to be 3.
Committee want to make some money. They understand that money is to be made as well. And you ain't gonna make a whole lot of money with a bunch of Boise States matchups, and you ain't gonna make a lot of money with SMU. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's cute. That's cute.
Thank you would go to a 5-game conference schedule, and nobody would schedule anything other than exhibition bouts for all. It'd be like, wait a minute, we played each other. We're punishing ourselves because we keep beating each other. We just won't play each other anymore.
Greg Sankey in the month of February announces we have now partnered up with HBCUs. And so we want to celebrate Black History Month, and we're all going to play HBCUs. So, hey, we're going to hold on for that Big Ten thing because we're just all our non-conference guys. Get ready. FAMU's coming to town. Like, that's what he'll do. We had a super chat that came too.
Yeah, pull that up. We got Paul. Conference championships.
I
got it? Okay. Conference championships are becoming the NBA in-season tourney. Yeah, it's nice. You get a banner, bragging rights, but ultimately, meh. I don't know, man. Conference championships are bigger than, to me, I can't get into the in-season. The Lakers won it one year. That's all I can remember. Conference championships are bigger than that. But yeah, look at college basketball. You know, there were seasons that Shaka Smart had that if you stop the count, get to the end of the conference tournament, he won that.
He won the conference tournament in his last year here, didn't he?
And they fired him. So, look.
That happened.
You still get to like hold a banner up, but like, the thing that got him fired was he couldn't get to the Sweet 16. And look, I'm viewing this Texas basketball. I wrote this yesterday in my column. I'm watching the Texas basketball team, and I don't have a vibe yet that this is a Sweet 16 type of team. It could get there, but I haven't seen anything early on that's made me think, oh, man, this team's winning a couple of games in the tournament faux show. I don't know. Maybe. I love Trey Johnson, but I don't know the team's that good. So, but it's November. I'm viewing the college basketball season through what's going to happen in March. And the thing that we haven't lived as an experience yet is an actual 12-team playoff. In a couple of years from now, let there be a team, and if you don't want it to be you, that's 0-3 in the playoffs. Remember when Oklahoma had that record against the SEC in the playoff games?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, Oklahoma 0-4 in big games, and they can't beat an SEC team. And Oklahoma in the Big 12 is kind of poor man's football. That will be you. There will be a couple of coaches that get their teams there semi-consistently, a couple of times at least. And Anwar, if they'll lose, and the tag will be they can't win in the playoffs, and they're going to lose their jobs. And we will see someone in the next few years lose their job because they're not having enough success in the postseason, and that's the new holy grail. And I'm okay with that. It's what it means to have a real championship.
Catch. I mean, not only playoff catch, losing in there, not getting there. You don't think Ole Miss fans are a little salty at Lane Kiffin right now, thinking to themselves, we were this close to being in the playoffs, and now we're not going to be in the playoffs, right? So you're going to have a not only losing there, not making it. That's a huge disappointment because now your bowl game don't mean a jack.
They never do. Like, I barely remember Sark's bowl record. I remember they lost last year in the playoff.
Yeah, correct.
And these other games don't matter. And I love that we're finally going to be in a position where we can just be honest about it. The Alamo Bowl won't matter. If you're in the Alamo Bowl, the whole thing went wrong. Yeah. And how do you even get your team up for that game? Hey, we're going to go get 15 practices and play in a game, but we're not in the cool kids club.
No.
Nothing going to the cafeteria. You got your tray in your hand, Anwar. You're looking for a place to sit. Then you're like, oh, there goes Jimmy and Joe and Michael. They're all, there's no, and they just looked at me like, I can't come. I guess I better sit with the nerds. Like, it sucks. And like, that's what these things are going to be. But look, if that's the way it has to be in order to create what we've created, because I don't know about the rest of you, I have had a lot of fun the last month. 12 hours every Saturday of college football. And there's always something going on that has tentacles to the playoff, and it has my attention. I'm watching games, and I knew this would happen, Anwar, that I've never really cared about. BYU and Arizona State is a perfect example. Why would I care about that game?
Never.
And yet I was watching it on Saturday. We were doing the postgame show, and I'm like leaning around the corner, looking at my TV. I was, so I'm already in. The playoff doesn't have to convince me that this was the move to make, but it does. Texas caught a big break, man. Again, I don't think they will feel the safety net. I think they will feel trepidation on Saturday. We better win. But the we better win part now today is different than it was a week ago, and it's nuanced. It's about, God, do we want to make the road to a championship impossible? Because it really would. Not that Texas couldn't win 4 straight playoff games, but the idea that you would have to beat the 5 seed, I guess then the 4. I'm trying to figure out how it would go at that point, but you're having to beat maybe the 1, the 2, the 5. It's asking a lot. So I think that this team caught a real break on Saturday, and I think it will allow for whatever disaster is on Saturday against the Aggies. I don't think the disaster includes missing the playoffs. I think pride, spot in the SEC championship game, you give A&M some recruiting leverage and momentum. Like, there's a lot of bad things, but I do think missing the playoffs got taken out of the equation. And if Alabama and Ole Miss have won their games, I think the conversation feels different today.
Here's where the only reason I would go the opposite way. I don't trust the committee because they use the subjective measure called the eye test. And that is totally subjective, and it's no way to measure it. And the thing is so I think.
You think they might drop Texas out?
If it was an ass kicking.
Like 48-14.
Something like that. Okay. Yeah, the worst case scenarios, right? I'm just talking about they lost
38-14.
I think 20 or more, right?
Okay.
20 or more. And at that point, and that would fall in line with your 38-14, because they have this thing. It's an annoying thing for me, right? Just so we're clear, it's annoying because I don't know what eye test means. Like you're just saying I just wanted it to look good, like, or I don't. That shouldn't be a barometer for how you determine who gets in. But they go through all these measurables, right? And they're like, going to look at records, going to look at strength of schedule, right? We're going to look at this. But they didn't look at, I mean, poor Florida State last year. They're like, man, the quarterback got hurt. They ain't really passing the eye test. I mean, I know they haven't lost a game, but I don't really think they looked that good. Now, maybe they were correct, obviously, when it's all said and done, because Florida State got smoked in the ball game. Of course, all their players left too. So you have to factor that in. So it's just that if they didn't say eye test, I would say, okay, no problem. But now it's almost like if you lose, better lose close. I mean, because if not, they're going to say, I don't know. You know what, guys? I see all that stuff, but I don't even know if they look that good. You think they look that good? Nah, not to me. Like, that's the thing I don't trust about the committee.
Well, the committee it's year one. So to be fair to you, Anwar, the committee hasn't done anything to warrant either trust or distrust. What we know them for is the 4-team playoff, which could get a little sketchy. The way the eye test comes into play when you're just picking 4. How will this look? I wonder in 2 weeks from today, I wonder if there's going to be one. You know how the NCAA tournament will leave somebody out? And oh my God, they're hurt. And it's for a whole news cycle. It's like Miami is upset because they didn't make it as a 12 seed. And did the NCAA committee get it wrong? And it's like, whatever. Will there be a team? Because I don't know that the answer is yes. Now that Alabama and Ole Miss have 3 losses, and South Carolina's got 3 losses, I just don't know that I have time to hear from them. And I just think as the games have gone on, these teams have just been knocking each other off, and we're just left in it. It's like, what does a game of musical chairs look like when there's actually enough chairs for the people that are available? And I'm starting to think, you know what? There's going to be exactly 12 teams that are going to make this thing. And if we went to 13 or 14, the arguments that we would have about a 3-loss team from the SEC and a 2-loss team, because, an example is what's going on in the ACC right now. You're going to get Miami and SMU in the championship game. But Clemson gets South Carolina this weekend. Now, I think South Carolina is going to beat Clemson. But if Clemson were to beat South Carolina, they'll be 10-2. Mm-hmm. And the committee will have to make a decision about SMU, the loser of Miami and SMU. The committee has said they won't punish that team. But what if they think Clemson is better and it's a better TV game? They think it's a better team. Like, we could, if they went to 16, the Clemsons of the world are in the discussion. I just don't think this is just a weird year where I think there's going to be almost an exact right number of teams. And I think Texas is in the exact right number of teams. But you're right. If they were to get their butts kicked this weekend, then, yeah, we haven't lived through this before. So maybe Texas would get punished. Roger with a $250 super chat. The number 2 seed will make the SEC championship game worth it. Maybe. I mean, it's all worth it. What's not worth it?
Yeah. I think that because I think people there's a narrative out there, Catch, that I think Lane Kiffin wanted to throw that out there as well. Which ironically, when Lane started talking about the playoffs, he actually loses, and so it doesn't matter. But the whole Lane was talking about last week, like, hey, I've talked to some coaches and they say it's better not to make it to the SEC championship game. And then you don't have to worry about that, Lane. Like, you don't have to worry about that, because what's the committee going to say? Like, if you lose in the SEC championship game. So that, I think that's what he's referring to. And at the end of the day, you want to be in the game. You just don't want to get your ass kicked, but you want to be in the game because the committee has said that, hey, when it comes to you being in the game, we understand that we have to judge you differently than somebody who was just sitting at home and wasn't good enough to make the conference championship. Got to make the conference championship. And then, of course, you want to win it. And then at worst, if you lose, you probably host. So it's not the word. But look, it's not like when we look at South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina will still be on the outside looking. If Texas and Georgia play, and they now, and let's say Georgia falls to a third loss after Texas gets their revenge, and they fall to a third loss, and South Carolina has 3 losses. Committee ain't putting South Carolina in.
Yeah.
They're going to say, no, you weren't even there. You know what I'm saying? Can't hate from outside the club. You can't get in. No.
By the way, our guy Tracy jumps in. This is directed at me for $2. Tracy, come on, man. $5 if you're going to call me out on Jaden Blue. Are you over Blue and president of the Wisner fan club? Tracy, I own no stock in running backs on this Texas team right now. I think if you even eliminated the fumble issue that won't go away and apparently just is not going to go away this season, none of these guys have been good enough to be what Texas has had at the position. And if you're Texas, your goal is to have an elite, high-level NFL player at every position. Now, you can't always do it, and we know that there are positions on this team where that doesn't take place, but the last 5 years, there's been a whole lot of Jonathan Brooks and Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson and Deontay Foreman, if you go back. And, like, Texas always has really good running backs. These guys have just been okay. For the season, they're hovering around 5 yards per carry. That's not terrible, but it's just okay. If Tracy, I'll be honest, Sark's got to go find a running back in the portal. These dudes aren't good enough. They're okay. I think when we look at Trey Wisner, I think he's a heck of a squad player. But I don't think he's special. I don't think he's the guy you aspire to have as your starting running back. And I've never completely believed in C.J. Baxter, and he's coming off of a major injury, and you won't even know what you have in him until August, how much he's even back from that injury. It's taken Jonathan Brooks, who had the injury, 2 months after Baxter would have. It's been almost a full 12-month deal since Brooks has gotten back on the field. You're probably talking about August just to get him cleared, and then he still has to prove that he's a plus player at this level. I am no longer the president of anybody's fan club at the running back position. I think they're all talented. I think they all have a place. I still really like Jaden Blue, but he's not holding on to the football. And where I used to say the first or the second or the third time it happened on War that you got to stick with him, I can't say going into the A&M game. They can't afford to have turnovers. And right now it feels like he's good for 1 per game. So I don't know what you do with that.
Yeah, I mean, the Mississippi State thing happened. He got fortunate with the first ball that he put on the ground because he crossed the plane just right before he put the ball on the ground. They put the ball on the ground again. And Jared Gibson, at least I can understand him because he's a freshman. So that's going to happen. Again, there's not enough balls how many days of the week do you need to walk around campus with a ball catch? Like at some point, Tashard Coyce can only do so much as far as ball security is concerned. So, yeah, I'm with you. I was huge on Blue going into the season. Hell, but he fumbles too much. It kind of is what it is. And by the way, Catch, Wisner has 626 yards. Sark's going to need every postseason game so he can keep his 1,000-yard streak going.
Wisner could get it now.
Yeah.
I think he could get 100 this week. Let's say he gets like 70 in an SEC championship game. That'd put him at about 800.
Mm-hmm.
If Texas plays 2 playoff games, it'd be close.
Yeah.
It would be close.
Yeah.
If he has a huge game this week, which who knows, they may lean on him to go big. It's the dream isn't dead, I suppose. Onward, the super chats just keep coming in. We'll knock out a few more of these before we got to go. Ricky says, can someone please have Mac Brown's contact Sark and encourage him to watch a replay of the 2001 Big 12 championship game before it's too late?
I don't think, with all due respect, I don't think Sark needs to talk to Mac Brown about anything right about now. Mac's got his own issues, okay?
And Ricky, the issue in that 2001 Big 12 championship game wasn't that Chris Sims was hurt. It was that Chris Sims sorry, my wife just barged in and gave me a weird look, and I don't know what it meant. I still don't know. She said something to me. Just hold on. We'll stop the show. What is going on? Oh, the Christmas lights guys are coming right now, Anwar. So
hey, Heather.
We need to wrap this up as quickly as possible. Apparently,
no problems in the Ketchup household today.
Can't stay here.
The A&M game might be taking place for the first time in half a generation, but the Christmas lights people are going to be here.
Hey, you got your dogs. Your dogs aren't barking.
But my wife is, yes.
I didn't want to finish it. I didn't want to be disrespectful.
Well, we have super chats. We'll finish up as quickly as possible. And the Christmas lights people can wait. They're not paying me. I'm paying them. Oscar, $9.99. Oscar, there you go. Way to show everybody that's doing the $2 thing. Come on, man. If you really want us to see $2, you got to give more than $2. My overreaction is Texas will do great in the playoff. They beat down on teams that Bama and Ole Miss can't. Transient property isn't important. You just did transient property. But no team, you did. You're saying no transient property isn't important, but no team in the country is consistently better. You did that literally after you did. Okay, Oscar, I'm going to let it go. I think Texas has a chance to do great in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they've got as good a chance as anybody that makes the playoffs.
I think I will say it, and I said it on Saturday. The thing is, it's this defense. The thing that gives me confidence in this team is its defense and what they've been able to do, how consistently well they played. That defense travels. They've got 17 interceptions catch. I mean, it's a damn good defense.
No, it's better than that. It's a great it's legitimately great defense with a great secondary. The thing that Texas has got cooking right now that is really unique for the best defenses that they've had in recent school history is I think they've got legitimately great players at every level. So what you don't have is a secondary that's playing really well, but the linebacker, they're getting gashed in the run game. You've got arguably the best linebacker in the country in Anthony Hill. You've got arguably the best DB in the country in Jahdae Barron. You arguably have the best defensive freshman in the country in Colin Simmons. You got a guy in Alfred Collins that right now in the last month has been playing as well as any defensive tackle in the country. I just think that group is legit. And I think it's the thing that makes this week against A&M. A&M's not – Texas has given up more than 24 points twice this season and only 30 points one time. Texas's offense is typically good for kind of being in the 30-point range. They may not be hitting 50, and they may not be hitting 40 every week out, but 30 feels like a sweet spot for them. If Texas scores 30 against A&M on Saturday, I've got real questions about whether A&M can put up 30 points against this Texas defense. I don't think they can. It would require some turnovers, special teams, that type of thing, I think, to get A&M to 30. Texas, if they've got a remotely healthy Quinn Ewers, I think will score 30. I do have some reservations after Saturday, what he's going to look like in the third quarter.
Right. Mike Hart just has one here as well, Catch. He said, buy or sell, the committee will make sure an Arch-led team gets in.
I mean, it's a hell of a tiebreaker, but I mean, not now.
Yes.
He's not playing.
In the future, yes, if all things are equal, an Arch team will get in, right? I mean, look, in the future, Catch, next year, you and I should not plan on having any 11 o'clock kickoff games. Can we just come to that agreement?
TV is going to be like, we want even the SEC network will want, and so SEC network will get one because they want some of that property too. But yeah, be prepared. Great time slots every week.
Yeah, it will be a 6:30 kickoff every night. They complain about LSU night games. Yeah, wait until Arch is here. Because you know
he might as well be a vampire. He's not coming out during the daytime.
We got to rename the Sunday pulpit. That thing's gonna be a Monday pulpit. If I'm getting home at 2:00 every morning, that thing is gonna be pushed back.
So we'll just have a catches 10 thoughts from the weekend and onwards like 9 thoughts for the weekend or something, and just put them out at the exact same time. Tracy coming back with $5. There you go, Tracy. Why do critics argue that Texas has only faced mid-SEC teams when those same mid-SEC teams had defeated top-ranked SEC teams? Tracy, come on, man. Because they're mid. Mid doesn't mean that you can't be really good on your given day, but, it's not Texas's fault. And Indiana hasn't beaten anybody. Penn State hasn't beaten anybody. Texas isn't alone in this hasn't beaten anybody card, but Texas hasn't beaten anybody. Their best win is, I think today is Florida. Would you agree? Do we think that's right? Florida is like because Vanderbilt the SEC now.
Yeah, Vanderbilt will lose the next couple of games. So yeah,
And Texas was a great performance. I mean the game was over in 5 minutes. So,
but Florida didn't even have its starting quarterback.
Well, details.
So, they didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have Lagway.
They didn't have their backup quarterback. They were down to the third string guy.
Yeah, they played a walk-on. So I don't know. Honestly, it might be Vanderbilt.
Tracy, but look. Why do critics argue? Because that's what critics do. Like, stop right there. Why do critics argue? Because critics are critical. And with Texas, if you're going to nitpick, and look, let's not pretend like the critics don't nitpick everybody. Everybody gets nitpicked. There's not a team in the country right now that doesn't get Georgia. I've heard Georgia get nitpicked a ton.
Oh, yeah.
A ton. They're Georgia. They'll be the favorites to win in the SEC championship next week, and yet they may be the 2 seed when this thing's all said and done. They get nitpicked. Maybe not so much Ohio State and Oregon, but everybody else, everybody's getting nitpicked. Don't take it too harshly, Tracy. It's the critics are doing what critics do, which is sometimes their job is to piss you off with their critical thought. Don't let them do it. Know that that's what they're trying to do, to try to get into your emotions. Don't let them do that to you, Tracy.
Before we head out of here, Catch, man, just ask you a kind of a quick one, just kind of sidebar, because Oklahoma, did that win help them with Fusi? Is he able to lay his head on a pillow at night and say, okay, everything they've been telling me, I finally, okay, they're not BSing me. I'm good.
Man, it's like you're dating a girl and she's like in a spelling bee or a singing recital, whatever the contest may be. And you decide, I'm not going to go to that. I'm going to go out on a date with somebody else. And on that date with somebody else, you see on TV, oh my God, my girlfriend, she won the spelling bee. She's the smartest girl in school. Or she won Miss Texas. I don't know, whatever the contest is. And you look at it and you go, she's pretty great, isn't she? What am I doing here? And I think he had a little bit of that, because there's no way he was on his visit in Austin, and it had to feel a little bit dirty because he made it clear in some interviews that he's already done that he had his eye on the OU Alabama game the entire time. And Oklahoma put out a performance that kind of justified the previous belief that existed. Yeah, I think that may have. Now, look, I talked to a source yesterday, and I told him, like, hey, man, Fusi's staying with Oklahoma. Like, there's some early word on the street that that's the vibe. And this source said, we'll see. I'm not sure I buy that. And then I joked with him that, oh, you're not ready to throw in the towel yet. And he said no. So I don't know what they think they know behind the scenes at Texas. I can tell you that that Texas doesn't feel like it's a lost cause by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly didn't help. We got another super chat before we get the hell out of here. Mark, I'm going to let you have the last word today on super chats. Reports on Aggies putting extra speakers on sidelines for extra noise. Is this legal? And that crowd is going to be amped up. Ewers has ice in his veins. Yes, they have put extra speakers along the sidelines for extra noise. And Mark, I haven't heard that it's not legal. I've heard some people say it's Bush League, but I haven't heard anybody, and pathetic, but I haven't heard anybody say that it's illegal.
Look, at the end of the day, I mean, I get why they're doing it. It makes all the sense in the world. Like, you want home field advantage. Well, what do you do to make home field advantage? Well, you want to be loud. And somebody was like, we can make this loud. What?
Has anybody ever done this before?
Can we just put more speakers on the sidelines? Genius. That person has got a raise, right? Like, everybody, he goes to the meetings and they're like, man, whoever it is, he or she, they're like, man, you listen, Sally, you are great. We never even, it had to be a woman. It had to be a woman.
Like, she's sitting in a room full of men. It's like, hey, guys.
It had to be a woman. Now,
have you guys actually ever, like, can we do this? And all the guys looked at each other like, oh, no. And then they found out they could.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, it's a great idea. And Susie probably didn't even get the credit for it.
Probably not. They probably stole Susie's idea. But now that I know it's smart and innovative and no one had ever thought about it before, it definitely was a woman.
And look, if it works on Saturday, more teams will do it. And I guess I would say this, Mark. I think you're going to have both programs this week looking to whatever little minuscule edge they can get, they'll get. And I think we'll see it with Sark and the Quinn Ewers deal today. You can set your watch on 11 o'clock, him presenting that there will be mystery to what's going to happen with Quinn Ewers this week. We got to wait and see. We'll see how he responds to treatment. And like all of that little the game of it's all the same thing. It's what can we do that gives us a little bit of an extra edge. And I don't know that I can look at what Sarkisian will likely do with injuries this week and go, well, it's performance theater and it's part of the gamesmanship. I don't know that I can look at that and go, that's cool, but speakers? I mean, whoever said speakers were a bad thing? Just because I don't know that I've ever heard of it happening before. What if it turns out to be a great idea and after the game, the Aggies win by 2 points and they feel like, it had to have been worth at least a point? The speakers. Mm-hmm. You know who's using speakers next year?
Everybody in the SEC is like they're all going down. They're all on Amazon right now. Like everybody's going to do that. And look, Texas put in nice speakers, right? They put in a nice system. They just didn't think about putting extra stuff in. Everybody's always thought conventionally install speakers around the stadium. No one ever thought, let's just get a U-Haul and just a bunch of U-Hauls and just bring in a bunch of speakers. Like that would be cool.
You know what I'd do? If I was Texas, I would call Harlan at A&B TV.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd be like, hey, man, we need you on the sidelines this weekend. Find everything that's plugged in on our sideline, unplug it. Disassemble. We can't say that they can't have speakers, but hey, man, what if we got somebody behind the scenes that just keeps, in Forrest Gump, whenever Forrest gets up to speak in front of the crowd in D.C. and the military guy comes and unplugs all the cables, that's all you do. You just unplug the cables, and it's a game back and forth of you plug it in, I plug it out. But every time we find a way where there's a cord that's plugged in, we are unplugging it.
Yes, 100%. All right, Catch, let's get out of here.
All right, guys, thanks for all of the comments. I want to remind you, by the way, before we get out of here, go vote for Rogue Shop. They are the sponsor of this show, and they're in a contest right now that they want to win. Scan that QR code. Go vote for Rogue Shop. And then you're going to get 30% off your next order. All you would need to do is either PM OM Ganja on Orange Bloods, or you can just email Rogue Shop sales at rogueshop.com, and they'll give you the code 30% off your order. That's Christmas giving is what that's doing. If nothing else, go vote for Rogue Shop. They're great partners with us at Orange Bloods. Help them be number one in the Chippewa Valley. But yeah, you can also be selfish and get the 30% code after voting. Just reach out to Richard or Shar and let them know. I've already voted. I'm going to vote as many times as they will let me. I think there's like a 1 per day restriction. But let's help Rogue Shop. All right, guys, thank you. We'll be back for House Divided in a few hours. For myself, for Anwar Richardson, you guys get ready to have a great week for Thanksgiving, and the holidays are officially beginning. But yeah, A&M in Texas on Saturday. We'll have you covered at Orange Bloods Live all week